Canada is not a country that gets talked about when the conversation turns to black wealth. America gets the headlines. Africa gets the countdowns. The UK gets the profiles. But right now, in the boardrooms of Toronto, on Bay Street, inside the financial infrastructure that moves this entire country, there are two black men whose combined fortunes exceed $1.5 billion. One of them arrived from Jamaica with $40 and a borrowed overcoat. The other grew up in a tin-roofed shack, was thrown out of his mother's house at 13 years old, and walked into the most exclusive industry in Canadian finance with nothing but a law clerk certificate and an idea nobody else had thought to monetize. Two men, two stories, one country that has never told them properly. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why that is a problem and exactly what they built. Forget the story you have been sold about how wealth gets built in this country. The version they teach is slow, institutional, old money passing keys to older money in rooms that were never designed for someone who looks like Michael Lee Chin or Wes Hall. This is not that story. This is what happens when two men from the same island, separated by decades, both look at a system that was not built for them and decide that is not a verdict. That is a market inefficiency. January 3, 1951, Port Antonio, Jamaica. Michael Lee Chin is born into a large family household with limited means and absolute expectation. His mother runs a shop. His stepfather operates a small grocery business. There is no inheritance accumulating anywhere, no family fortune waiting in a bank. What Lee Chin absorbs growing up is something more durable than money. His stepfather teaches by example. The most important things a man can own are the things he can touch. Real estate, businesses, assets that compound over time. At 19 years old, he boards a flight to Canada. He is carrying $40 and a coat he borrowed from someone else. That is not a metaphor. That is the complete inventory. He enrolls at McMaster University in Hamilton, Ontario, studies civil engineering, graduates, gets a job, follows the path exactly as prescribed. Then, around 1977, he joins Investors Group as a financial advisor. And for the first time, he is not moving concrete. He is moving capital. And he starts to understand something that will change everything. The rules of money are not laws of physics. They bend, if you are willing to be the one bending them. But the decision that changed everything, the one that most trained financial professionals would have called career suicide, was still 6 years away. Michael Lee Chin is 32 years old. He walks into the Continental Bank of Canada and borrows $500,000. $500,000 on a financial advisor's salary, with no generational safety net underneath him. And then he takes every single dollar of that loan and invests it into one company. 1. Mackenzie Financial Corporation. No diversification, no hedge, no exit plan. One bet, total conviction. What most trained financial advisors would have called insane, Lee Chin calls a thesis. Over the next 4 years, that investment grows approximately 7-fold. The borrowed $500,000 becomes the foundation of something nobody saw coming. He takes the proceeds and acquires a small Ontario-based investment firm called AIC Limited. At the time of purchase, AIC is managing $800,000 in assets. $800,000. The company motto is 3 words: buy, hold, prosper. He means all 3. Over the next 14 years, Michael Lee Chin turns $800,000 under management into $15 billion. $15 billion. Built on concentration, patience, and a complete refusal to be moved by market noise. By 2001, AIC Limited is one of the largest mutual fund companies in Canada. Then, 2008 hits. The global financial crisis does not spare AIC. Assets collapse. Lee Chin makes the decision to sell AIC to Manulife Financial in 2009. Most people who lose an empire at that scale disappear. Lee Chin moved continents. In 2002, while AIC was still at its peak, he had already acquired a controlling stake in National Commercial Bank Jamaica. NCB, one of the largest banks in the Caribbean. He rebuilt it. expanded it into Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, the Cayman Islands, the United Kingdom. His holding company, Portland Holdings, now spans banking, insurance, telecommunications, tourism, and agriculture across multiple countries. He owns Wallingford Coffee, the largest cultivator of Jamaica Blue Mountain coffee on earth. The coffee that commands hundreds of dollars per pound in Tokyo and London. He has donated approximately $60 million to Canadian hospitals, universities, and cultural institutions, including a $30 million pledge to the Royal Ontario Museum on Bloor Street in Toronto. The addition they built bears his name. The Michael Lee Chin Crystal, designed by architect Daniel Libeskind. Steel and glass on one of Canada's most iconic streets. A monument funded by a man who once needed to borrow a coat to survive a Canadian winter. He was appointed Chancellor of Wilfrid Laurier University, appointed to the Order of Jamaica, named Chairman of Jamaica's Economic Growth Council in 2016. Forbes 2025 places his net worth at approximately $1.1 billion. The boy from Port Antonio with $40 became a billionaire who reshaped two countries. Canada has one confirmed black billionaire. His name is Michael Lee Chin. Most Canadians still cannot tell you who he is. Now, here is where this story gets more complicated. Because while Michael Lee Chin was building that empire through banks and boardrooms, a teenager from Golden Grove, Jamaica, was being thrown out of his mother's house at age 13. He had no money, no network, no plan beyond survival, and he was going to become the most feared man on Bay Street. His name is Wes Hall, and his story is arguably even more remarkable. Stay with me. Wes Hall grows up in Golden Grove, Jamaica, raised by his maternal grandmother in a zinc-roofed tin shack, one of approximately 15 half-brothers and sisters. His grandmother is the architect of everything stable in his world. When he is sent to live with his mother at around age 11, what he finds is not warmth, verbal abuse, instability, a home that does not function like one. At 13, he is thrown out. He is a child, with nowhere to go, surviving on resourcefulness in a country that is not going to catch him. At 16, he moves to Toronto to live with his father. He carries nothing from Jamaica except one understanding: nobody is coming to save him. He washes dishes. He works as a security guard. He trains as a law clerk at George Brown College and finds his way into the legal division of CanWest, one of Canada's largest media conglomerates at the time. And that is where something clicks. Not because CanWest is glamorous, but because from inside the legal infrastructure of a major corporation, Wes Hall can see exactly how Canada's biggest companies move, how they fight, how they defend, how they attack. And he notices a gap, a specific gap, a lucrative, almost completely unmonetized gap sitting at the center of Canadian corporate finance. Nobody owns it. This is where the story stops being impressive and starts being almost unbelievable. The most brutal battles in Canadian corporate finance are not fought in courtrooms. They are fought in shareholder meetings, proxy votes, hostile takeovers, activist investor campaigns. A billionaire hedge fund manager decides he wants to dismantle an entire board of directors. A merger worth $20 billion hangs on which way a handful of institutional shareholders vote. A company needs its shareholders to back a deal, or the deal dies. These are wars. And in 2002, nobody in Canada has built a firm specifically designed to win them. Wes Hall sees it, builds it. He borrows $100,000 from a bank, puts a mortgage on his home, and founds Kingsdale Advisors, shareholder services, proxy solicitation, hostile takeover strategy. The intelligence operation of Canadian corporate finance. No institutional backing, no inherited Bay Street network built across decades of private school relationships. He builds the network himself, one deal at a time, in an industry where reputation is the only currency that matters. The clients start coming. Bill Ackman, one of the most aggressive activist investors in the world, is waging a campaign to replace the entire board of CP Rail and install Hunter Harrison as CEO. One of the most consequential proxy battles in Canadian corporate history. He hires Kingsdale, Enbridge needs to execute a merger with Spectra Energy. $37 billion. They hire Kingsdale. Tim Hortons is merging with Burger King. $12.5 billion. Kingsdale is in the room. Petro-Canada and Suncor merge. Approximately $19 billion. Kingsdale, Air Canada, Barrick Gold, BHP Billiton, CN Rail, Citigroup. The client list reads like a map of the most powerful institutions in North American corporate life. By 2014, the Globe and Mail is calling Wes Hall one of the most influential power brokers on Bay Street. That same year, he sells majority control of Kingsdale Advisors to MDC Partners for $50 million. The man who washed dishes in a Toronto kitchen sold the most powerful shareholder advisory firm in Canadian corporate finance for $50 million. Wes Hall does not stop at $50 million. He builds and expands into private equity. His investment portfolio spans shareholder advisory, environmental remediation, oil and gas supply, automated retail, and manufacturing, companies that have collectively generated over $1 billion in economic output. But the biggest move Wes Hall ever makes has nothing to do with money. In 2020, he founds the Black North Initiative. Not a charity, not a diversity report, a pledge, a public binding commitment that he places in front of the most powerful CEOs in Canada and asks them to sign. The pledge targets the systemic barriers that keep Black Canadians out of executive leadership, out of boardrooms, out of the rooms where capital is allocated and decisions are made. Hundreds of Canadian CEOs sign it. Think carefully about what that means. A man who was thrown out of his home at 13, who washed dishes in a Toronto kitchen, who built a firm from a $100,000 loan and a mortgaged house, is now in a position to extract public commitments from the most powerful corporate leaders in this country. That is not influence. That is leverage. And he built every ounce of it himself. In 2021, he becomes the first Black investor judge in the history of Dragon's Den. In 2023, the University of Toronto awards him an honorary doctorate. His estimated net worth in 2025 sits between $350 million and $550 million. Built from nothing. No inheritance, no safety net, no open doors. He wrote his autobiography. The title says everything. No bootstraps when you're barefoot. Two men, same island, same starting point, nothing. Michael Lee Chin borrows $500,000, bets it all on a single stock, and builds a billion-dollar empire across 2 continents. He puts his name on a building in Toronto that will stand for 100 years. He rebuilds banking across the Caribbean. Wes Hall gets thrown out of a house at 13, works his way into the machinery of Canadian corporate power, and becomes so embedded in it that you cannot execute a major merger, fight a hostile takeover, or win a proxy battle in this country without considering whether Wes Hall is already in the room on the other side. Neither of them inherited a dollar. Neither of them waited for permission. Neither of them needed anyone to open a door. They looked at a system that was not built for them and decided that was the market inefficiency. $1 billion, $50 million exit, hundreds of CEO signatures on a document that would not exist without him. 2 men from Jamaica, Canada's financial spine, and almost nobody knows their names. Now you do.